Hello chap here, welcome to the workshop for a show and tell. I have before me a very, very long light infantry musket, rifled musket, a French model 1854 rifled musket for the Voltigeurs of the Imperial Guard. Now, because we are in the Second Empire, this means that I have to wear this racy Garance kepi and perhaps also twirl my moustache tips. So the rifled musket itself has no particular features that make it extraordinary as such, but it is created at a time of quite rapid development, both in technology and in tactics of the French infantry. Obviously, most of the literature out there in the Anglo side is, let's say, focused around more the British way of arming and training the infantry, but you have to remember that most of the European continent was following the French method. So this is a sort of to balance out the knowledge, as it were. So let's get back to the period where this was created. This is under Napoleon III. He came to the throne in 1852, and he wanted to resurrect the Imperial Guard. Now, this had fallen with Napoleon I, of course. It was his pride and joy. And yes, Napoleon III thought it would be quite nice to bring this regiment back. He was himself, amongst many things, also a fully qualified artillery officer. So he was very much aware and keeping up to speed with all the developments in small arms technology and artillery, of course. And so he was always poking his nose in to see what was happening in France and abroad. And so when it came to arming his own private elite corps, he of course wanted them to be armed with the latest technology. This would primarily be for the grenadiers, so the really tall soldiers with their massive bearskin hats, the original bearers of the bearskin hats, and the lighter infantry, the Voltigeurs. So in terms of military, so in the bog standard infantry rifles of the French infantry at the time, where were we? Well, France transitioned to the percussion system in 1840, and that was a two-step process. Firstly, the older models that were still serviceable, the older smoothbore muskets, were converted to percussion. That was with forge welding a percussion nipple on the barrel and converting the lock to have a simple percussion hammer. And there was a new family of muskets and carbines, musketoons, and that was the 1842. This is still smoothbore, but we do have a fixed rear sight now. So that's the infantry. Let's take a slight parallel to see what's happening with the chasseurs, the riflemen. Remember, in the continental European armies, these massive conscript armies, you essentially only teach those who know how to shoot. It makes sense. So they, from May 1847, are equipped with the rifled carbine of 1846. This is a pillar breech system, carbine à tige, invention of Mr. Touvenin. So we have a pillar in extension of the breech plug against which you hammer a flat-based conical, which expands into the rifling. Now, the increase in accuracy that this gave compared to the smoothbore infantry rifle was such that they seriously contemplated extending the tige system to the entire infantry. But, now, those of you who know the period will probably know what's coming. In 1849, a certain Captain Mignet proposes, I'll say proposes because he didn't invent it, proposes his hollow-based projectile, which is expanded with an iron cup. Now, the hollow-based bullet itself is actually the invention of Gustave Delvigne, but that's maybe a story for another time. Mr. Tamizier, who actually developed the projectile for the tige system, was an exceptional ballistics expert, and he reworked the first version of the Mignet projectile so that they could get rid of this iron cup, because in certain cases it would blow through the nose of the bullet before the bullet had left the barrel, and you can imagine what that was like. Anyway, this means that the Mignet, as we know today, which is actually a group effort, completely disrupts the armaments program that was going on. There's, of course, no reason at all to carry on with the Tige system, which is great, but maintenance is an issue. And with a conscript army, maintenance is really very, very important. You've got to keep it as simple as possible. So this then, as I said, interrupts the current armaments program, and there comes a period of hesitance. They don't really know what to do, but in the meantime they do bring out another pattern of rifle, which is the 1853. And this is still smoothbore, but it does have a thicker barrel. They reduced the caliber down from 18mm down to 17.8. Now this thicker barrel means that it can later be rifled whatever they decide to do. The pattern of rifling is still up in the air. What they do, however, in a small gesture towards ease of use, is that they shift the nipple bolster to the right, so slightly out to the outside, which gives a clearer view for aiming. The 1842 system, the hammer is rather close to the rear sight, and it interferes a bit. Now these rifles can fire round ball, but they can also fire the Nestler projectile, which was sort of the ancestor of the 12-gauge slug, and it was an attempt to accurize a bit the smoothbores, and it did give a slight increase in accuracy. The Chasseurs on their side also got a 1853 pattern carbine, but that is, yeah, they benefited from this movement of the bolster to the right as well, but it is still a Tige system. So that is the state of play for the armament of the infantry in the early 1850s. And let's get back now to Napoleon III, who had some decisions to make to arm his precious Imperial Guard. Of course, it would have to have the latest of the latest, and this means all the developments brought forward by Captain Mignet and Tamizier. So we have a rifled musket. It does not have a pillar in the breech, and it is firing one of these newfangled Mignet projectiles without an iron cup. Now, the rifling in this is progressive. That means it is deeper at the breech end, 0.5mm, and it is only 0.2mm at the breech. Now, of course, the barrel thickness reduces as you go along. I've seen it stated, repeated many, many times, that this was done due to worry about the depth of the rifling as the barrel thickness reduces and it might explode. I actually think that that is a very naive rumour that started somewhere. The simple fact is that even in France, the Chasseur carbine of 1837 had a constant depth of rifling all along the barrel, and they didn't explode. So there was plenty of empirical data, both internally and externally. There were plenty of rifled carbines and other things in neighbouring countries with constant depth rifling with no adverse effect. So I don't know where this rumour started. I think it was more of a fashion thing. It sounded, it was the latest thing. It's relatively complicated to do. It's a fad that also carried on, not just then. A great example is the Carcano of 1891. They used progressive rifling as well. So I don't know. But I very much doubt that fear of exploding barrels was what was responsible for the adoption of progressive rifling. The rate of twist is a very leisurely 1 turn in 2 meters. Concerning the ramrod, it conserves the classic sort of pear-shaped head, but we do have little hemispherical divot in the face of it, which is to help, to prevent damage to this new conical bullet. The rear sight, it is fixed and only to 200 meters. This is perhaps a bit surprising for a rifle that is destined to an elite infantry regiment. After all, the Chasseurs, even the Zouaves, and a few other elite light infantry troops have rifles, carbines, and musketoons with adjustable rear sights, but therein lies the difference. These elite corps are used to fighting in open order, and they are specifically for aiming at specific targets at extended distances to hit individual targets. These are what these troops are for. As I said before, those who know how to shoot are trained how to shoot. The infantry is not there for. They are fighting in close formation, and particularly the Imperial Guard, they will fire as little round as possible at relatively short distances, and their real weapon is the bayonet. Now, the bullet that goes with this rifle is particular to the rifle. It has a diameter of 17 millimeters. The barrel itself is 17.8 millimeters, so it's the new reduced size caliber. Probably look at the mold to get an better impression of the profile. It's very light, 36 grams, and the official load for it was 4.5 grams in this cartridge here. And concerning the accuracy of the rifle, the best summary I found in period documents was that you had a likelihood of hitting at 150 meters of 30% on a man-sized target. Apparently this was mid-range between what was expected from the smoothbore infantry muskets and what was being achieved by the riflemen. So that gives you an impression of how much importance was laid on infantry firepower by the French at the time. Now, to play happy families, we have in fact three models. There is the Grenadier model, which is 1 meter 47 long. And then we have the light infantry musket, the Voltigeurs, which is this one, 1 meter 42. And we also have a rifled musketoon for the Imperial gendarme, which is 1 meter 15. In terms of the long rifle, this was for the Grenadiers, who were expected to be a minimum of 1 meter 76. So that's 1 centimeter more than me, so ever so slightly shorter than Bloke, which were giants at the time. You have to remember, of course, that they also had the massive bearskin on top. So the appearance of this Mignet projectile was a first shock to the smooth development of a rifled muskets for the French infantry, but there is a second leap, and that comes in 1857, due to many things, but perhaps the most major event was the Crimean War and the experience from that, both of the use of the rifled musket. The 1854 was used in Crimea, and the Tige carbines, and of course of fighting alongside the British with their more universally adopted rifled muskets, and the training and the tactics that went with it. So the fallout of all this was that the Emperor decided on the 28th of April 1857 that finally all the infantry is going to be equipped with a rifled musket. Now all the muskets, the rifled muskets, will be of the light infantry length, the Voltigeurs length of 1 meter 42. That means all the new rifles are built to this length, and all the old ones are shortened. So gone are the long Grenadier rifles, although apparently those who managed to elude being returned to arsenals were kept as long ones. So there are some incredibly rare examples that haven't been shortened, because, as I mentioned before, the Grenadiers were large men and they had absolutely no problem with using the slightly longer muskets. Now, in terms of technology, we now have 4 grooves. So this is also 4 grooves. So 4 grooves are retained, but they are now of uniform depth, 0.2 millimeters. The rate of twist is kept the same at 1 turn in 2 meters. So gone all this progressive rifling nonsense. So the 1822 becomes the 1822T becomes 1822T bis. The 1842 becomes 1842T, and the 1853 smoothbore musket becomes 1853T. We have a fixed rear sight. This time it is calibrated still for 200, but the ultimate aim is to achieve reasonable accuracy up to 600 meters. Let's leave the longer distances to the chasseur. That's what they're trained for. So you're probably thinking 200 meter sight, accurate enough to 600 within the standards of the day. How are they going to do that? Well, we'll come to that later. Right, so there is this decree that this is how future rifles will be constructed. And in 1857, there is a new pattern of rifle comes out, which is, unsurprisingly, the model 1857, which is none other than the 1854 rifle, but now with uniform depth rifling. And the only thing they changed was the design of the ramrod head, which is now what in French is called a nail head, tête de clou, so it just ends abruptly with a nice flat face. The Mignets have got a flat, so. And of course, you're not supposed to be hammering them. This particular rifle dates from March 1857, and the only thing that has been done to it to conform to the new regulations is that it has had the ramrod head, well, the ramrod replaced with the new pattern, which means luckily it still has the progressive depth rifling. So here we are at the end of episode 1. I say episode 1 because initially I was going to do a huge long episode which also went into the particulars of training the infantry with these new rifled muskets. Remember, this is not a professional army in the Anglo-centric way. This is a massive conscript army. You have citizens that come for a quick refresher once a year. So the training involved is completely different. So there'll be a second episode where I go into that, somewhat drier and perhaps more academic, so only for the hardcore. There's no shooting in this video. However, for those who haven't seen it, there is a 5-round musket challenge that is up on the channel. This was in response to a direct challenge from Brett of paper cartridges. He's created this friendly competition to see how fast you can load a sort of original type cartridge using the proper drill. So I'll link that at the end of this video. At the time, I did not have this magnificent cartridge pouch that I have now. Neither did I have the hat. So maybe I should do it again to see if I can get under the 2 minutes. So check that out if you want. In the meantime, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for all your support that you wish to contribute to the channel. And I'll see you back here for part 2. Bye. If you're watching this video on YouTube, don't you think it would be great if there was somewhere that grouped all us nerdiest of gun nerds together, somewhere where you can post our content, whatever the topic, without fear of recrimination? Well, good news is that there is now such a place, somewhere that works either from a desktop or from any other devices that uses Apple, Android, Roku, Amazon Fire, you name it. It is weaponsandwar.tv, one word, weapons and war. It gives you the option of having a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription. And in fact, if you head over there right now, you may even find a discount code for a monthly subscription. So go and have a look. Now, this enables you to contribute directly to the support of all the channels in one easy package. And it's great because we can also create content on specific topics across all the channels. We can group together, we can create collections on specific topics from the different platforms that take part. Now, if that's not for you, not to worry, we will of course continue our content on the traditional platforms, and you can find the links to the Patreon and the player in the description. And we are forever grateful, of course, for all your engagement, be it praise, salty comments, grumpy comments. We love them. And of course, we thank you for all the support that you provide to us, whichever platform you are on.